This is Simon transparently awakening the heart of humanity as we see beyond the lies and open our eyes to realize
this is our time to rise.
Welcome everyone to another Simon Transparently podcast, depending on where you're catching us, audio or video. Welcome. Today I'm with our beautiful brother, what I like to call Brista, Craig McGregor.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling actually really good right now. I love the morning practice that we had today, dropping in. And yeah, I'm excited for this conversation and to see whatever unfolds.
Yeah, so tiny little bit of context is that Craig and I met on a ISTA training, International School of Temple Arts. And we pretty much had, I would say, tell me if I'm wrong, if you felt the same, but we had a beautiful connection. There felt like in that whole experience, actually, there felt like a lot of brotherhood happening in that particular retreat, you know, where there was a lot of respect. And I kind of met you in a sense of playfulness as well. You know, I could see you were really there, you were focused, but yeah, there was this sense of playfulness. And I don't have many South African friends, but the ones I have, I also have that. And you reminded me, funny enough, you kind of had little elements of another Craig that I know from South Africa that I worked on a film. So anyway, there was some resonance.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
First time I'm hearing that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and I definitely resonated the playful connection, especially with dance and you and ecstatic dance and other things that we've experienced together. I love the very playful and authentic expression that you have. So I definitely resonated with you on that, as well as on the brotherhood piece for sure. It's always been that's been a big part of a lot of the spaces that we've been sharing together.
Yeah. Just
dropping in deep to connection.
Yeah. Yeah, and trust.
And trust, yeah.
And touch and openness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you sent a beautiful message to me recently after a dance we'd been to, an encounter, and it really touched me of how you were just seeing me and appreciating that authentic connection that we were exchanging, and that was really touching. And then we had the opportunity to meet again. I didn't, you meet beings on this path, you don't always know what they do or what they get up to, right? But I happened to be at another event with this beautiful brother, and he's doing many things he's going to tell us today, but one of his passions right now is he's kind of going through a transition from one modality of expressing himself in the business realm, right? And he was telling me like, I want to work with soulpreneurs, and I want to support, this is what really caught me. He said, I want to support those in the field of sharing their gifts with the world and wanting to, really express themselves and what they have to offer, but often they have no clue how to do that, right? And if I'm paraphrasing here. So maybe you can say to everyone listening, like, give us a little insight on that first, and then we'll weave into the magic of money.
Yeah, beautiful. So, what you're touching on is essentially my expression of service in the world, right? So for me, how I show up in purpose and in service is to support other entrepreneurs, soulpreneurs, who are working in the realm, like you mentioned, of purpose, right? So for other beings whose business and their meaning and what they're doing with regards to work is about being in service of other people, in service of humanity, whether it's through serving in regards to connection, or something in the realm of body work, or something in the realm of whatever it might be. Also technology, using that in a way that's like emphasizing human connection and ultimately actually the expansion of human awareness. I'm really trying to support that field, because what I noticed a lot, having come myself from a different background in the tech industry, but as an entrepreneur, coming more from the business aspect, was that in the realm of soul service, a lot of beings that are in that space don't necessarily have business skills or business acumen, but they've got such an important thing to actually building something meaningful over time, which is purpose. And a lot of people in the business space don't have purpose, but they have skills on how to build things. And what I'm trying to do is bridge those two worlds. So bring in some skills on how to build a business and to thrive in that, but bringing it in from a place of love and abundance, instead of what happens a lot in the business world, which is mindsets based on fear and scarcity. and competition. And so people that are in soulpreneurs, they're not going to get those skills just straight from the business world, because it fundamentally doesn't resonate with who they are and what they are as
their values.
And their value system.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, they still could use some support in that realm. So that's what I'm bringing through in with regards to business. I created a company around this, co-founded a company called Evolution of Us, which is all about that. And we really see ourselves as empowering world leaders. It's like a modern business mystery school, in a way. You can think of it like that. Bringing in also self and business and kind of combining the two, the synthesis of the two. So it's an emergent new type of a field, I feel, but I feel at the same time necessary, and yes. I'm like really energized being in service in that realm. So that's what I'm about.
Yeah, I feel it.
And money is one of the topic, like a very important topic in there, but it's just one of others. So basically it's like three things that we focus on. It's purpose, success, and connection. And the money part fits in the success kind of pillar. You can think about it in that way. And at the moment, I'm just feeling this huge pull and this huge call from the field to come in and create spaces around money. And that's really what my focus is on at the moment, but within the bigger picture. So it's kind of like, if we zoom in, it's this whole money field within entrepreneurs. But if we zoom out, it's actually all about how can we together build the whole field? How can we get more money into the entire field? The entire field of soul service. How can we as beings work on ourselves in a way that's supportive of the field? That's really what it's about.
Right.
But zooming in, it's manifesting at the moment more in the realm of support around money.
Yeah, wow. We can dive on many areas there. Well, first of all, I just want to pick you up on one word you said. You said you're trying to do that, and I would reframe that and say you are doing it.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Because you know, I see you doing it, and it's and I feel your passion and your inspiration. And actually, I feel there is a big need for it. Yeah, I feel that there's. And I know you said in the business world there's kind of scarcity, competition, fear-based, but I'm also noticing in the so-called how would we term it, self-development, spiritual, you know, that realm. I'm noticing because there's maybe not what you're going to talk about today happening. There seems to be a kind of transference of that same mentality around marketing, money, fear-based scarcity approach, and almost competitiveness going in. So I love that you said evolution of us. It's like that me to we mentality. Yeah, it's like we're all in this together. And if evolution is the evolutionary impulse is moving through us, it's how do we actually collaborate, co-create, and really create something new out of what's been. And that's what I feel that you're tapping into.
Absolutely.
That's why I was inspired, because I haven't heard so many people talking about what you said, hence why we're now here doing this. Because I was like, yes, we need to share this and put it out into the world.
100%. And you touched on a few of the very core like codes within, you know, what we're doing in our brand and stuff like that. And the of us part is a code. And absolutely, there's something really beautiful in the field. Maybe we can just call it like the field of soul, or soulpreneur, or you know.
I like that soul field.
The soul field, yeah. And in that field, while I agree with you, there definitely are. I mean, that field is still part of a bigger system. That's the first thing, right? And yes, things like scarcity and fear and competition that exist in the bigger system also feed through into that field. But one thing that's beautiful about the soul field is that even though there might be beliefs around fear and scarcity, there's also this very inherent deep desire to collaborate and for community, and that doesn't exist in the broader field to the same extent.
Wonderful.
You know, so there might be underlying beliefs around fear and scarcity, and that's what I want to work on and support people in, but mostly there's this beautiful opportunity for collaboration and for community to be built.
That's like music to my ears.
Yeah, right?
And yeah, because this is a conversation I've had over the years with many different beings, and I haven't got that. You know, that's why I was resonant towards you. I also want to drink from that little piece that you're bringing, you know, because I think it's vital. And maybe let's just dive straight in though, because the root of it is around money. And last night we went to dinner and we were speaking, and Craig said, you know what, I don't want to talk too much about this topic today, because I also want to just bring that aliveness into the podcast. But one tiny bit of context I want to bring in at the moment, maybe for some of you out there listening or watching, we're at a time right now, June 2023. We've gone through what most of us all know what's been happening in the last 3 years. You described something beautiful earlier, which I would definitely want you to bring in terms of the cycle where we're at on a kind of, evolutionary, planetary perspective as well. But, we've got inflation rates going, skyrocketing at the moment. You've got the rising in the last sort of 9 years of the digital currencies coming through, of Bitcoin, crypto and all this. And then you've got the collapsing of so many of these structures and institutions that many have been dependent on. So there's that all happening in the soup at once, and then there's beings like you, me, and others out there that are purifying ourselves, you could say, to allow something new to emerge. So I just want to throw that out there for people listening. So we're talking about all these. It's not just like you've got a money problem. It's like, how are we navigating through this new wave, you could say.
Yeah, I like that. I like the impulse you're bringing to also to like, hey, let's first, maybe let's actually do. I would be happy to do that, which is like, let's give some context.
Yeah, please.
On actually where we are in the evolutionary cycle, and from there go deeper into things.
Yeah.
I can freeform talk about this for like days. So jump in if you have any questions along the way.
Yeah, super.
I would like to start actually talking about some more of the spiritual cosmic cycle stuff, and then we can perhaps come back to like...
I love that.
I know you love that. But we can also come back to the financial system, economic cycle too, right?
That's a nice...
Yeah, so on the cosmic scale, what we were talking about earlier was the fact that in the last roughly 2,000 odd years, we've been in the age of Pisces, which is a masculine age. And it's been an ascending age, so it's generally, in terms of development of a being, but also of the entire planet, it's an ascending motion that's looking to spirit, looking to God, to Jesus, to whatever it might be, some enlightened figure, looking up from the space we are right now, which is in the realm of matter, but it's really like raising consciousness, and that's an ascending motion. And a few years ago, 2020, that long cycle has shifted into the age of Aquarius, and the age of Aquarius is a descending cycle and it's a feminine cycle, and it's descending into matter, and the entire Earth, according to some spiritual traditions, has in the previous few thousand years, if you look at actually religions that have formed during that period, but also many other things, it's like the earth looking out, the earth looking up. And so in that way, a lot of things need to be kind of introduced and cleared, so that actually we can now go down into matter. Because just going into matter, even as an individual, this is another interesting part, but like just going into matter without taking consciousness into it, and going into the center of the earth, for example, and that uprising of Kundalini, it can be overwhelming for a system, both like a physical body system, but you can also think about it in terms of the earth itself, or bigger systems, because there's just so much collective energy in there. And especially if that energy is not cleared out, or if I'm not centered enough that I can actually allow collective energy to flow through me, then I can be in a situation where looking into matter becomes overwhelming for my system. People have breakdowns around that. Psychosis actually comes from that type of a thing. Like it can come from that.
We see that a lot.
Exactly.
A lot of that, especially in the last 10 years I've been exploring this, many have been having that experience.
Exactly. And that happens when you don't first look up in an ascending motion, connect with consciousness, and then take that consciousness down. That's a safer path to do first if you want to descend. And that's the whole path that some traditions say that Earth is going on. So it also makes sense that all of a sudden, in the last few years, I feel in the field, there's becoming an increasing focus on things like money, which is a topic in the realm of matter, because the entire cosmological constellation that we're in essentially is now looking into matter.
Right.
So yeah, matter's coming up. It's coming up for
and
people.
And
the root, it's in the base, exactly. And so it makes sense that money is an important topic to look at. And it's such a taboo topic. Think about it. I mean, no one talks about money. It's insane. Sexuality was something that since the hippies, since like the 60s and that whole movement, sexual liberation has been, a very big topic in the last 50, 60 odd years.
Which is still a blip.
Still a blip, but at least there's things that have, it's like collectively more common that people are exploring sexuality. There's lots of modalities around exploring sexuality. And it's like just starting now with money. I have the feeling. And it's taboo. It's so taboo. And it's like looking at sexuality for the first time.
Yeah, we said last night, actually, we were saying that they're so intrinsically linked. And many people that talk about it say that, don't they? They say when you're in your root, if we're talking chakra systems or energy centers, often those that are destabilized in their money and their relationship to their money, they talk about the anus and the sexual center also, and your relationship to how you are with sex, around neediness, greediness, this kind of shadow energy, which I know we're going to get to later, but just planting the seed there, that you when you can look at that, you can see the link of the two. And in England, I don't know if you have this in South Africa, but there's this thing where when people are holding their money and they don't let it go and they're holding on to it through fear, they're called tight asses. Did you know that? Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's like, maybe that's a global thing. Maybe if you're watching, I don't know how it is in your country, but it's like you call somebody a tight ass. Why are you associated to an ass being tight, right? Anyway, just want to drop that in there.
I love that. Beautiful.
Carry on.
So, to loose asses.
Exactly.
There we go.
Yeah, which actually is when we talk about relaxation. We talk about softening. We talk about opening Uranus, right, and then opening up to the abundance that's here and now. That is a softening. That is a releasing. But we won't go. Carry on. I will digress.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a little bit kind of like a cosmic view, I would say, on just where we're at and cycles, right?
Right. And you said this morning as well. I just want to bring this in, but this sense of the feminine now. If I'm pretty certain the audience that comes to Simon transparently will kind of be aligned to this, but we're seeing so much now talk about the feminine, the feminine principle, the kind of, let's say, uprising or empowerment that's coming from the feminine energy. Because I also want to talk and just say the feminine inside each of us, right? It's
divine feminine.
It's the feminine inside me and Craig as well. But we are seeing also over the last sort of decade now, where women have kind of went masculinized and thought that they need to become more masculinized in order to go into male-dominated positions, but then they were kind of just becoming like men, right? Using the same principles. But what we're talking about is more of an embodiment of the feminine and allowing the feminine energy, allowing that freedom of creativity, expression, spontaneity, and dropping into the dark and light of that too. So there's layers now, but continue because I just want to bring that in.
Yeah, no, that's definitely relevant also if you think about like patriarchy, and if you think about also the workplace. The economic system is a very masculine energy and system at the moment. We can talk to that maybe a little bit later, but it's just something that comes up for me with what you shared right now, is also talking to this transition that we're in at the moment into that age of Aquarius, which is really about, in a way, this also transition into a feminine age, right? So more sensitivity, more flow being requested and coming up from the field. Things also like the Me Too movement, if you think about that, where it's also like, there's a lot of history that's happened in the last several thousand years based on men and based on masculine. And we're now transitioning into structurally a very different phase that has a lot more feminine elements to it, including how we work with money. Yeah. Actually, also bringing more flow in. I believe money is actually a feminine energy. It wants to flow. Yeah. It's not a point A to B type of a thing. It's like, I think of money as this like a really sexy woman, super desirable that everyone wants, but that shouldn't be kind of controlled, or manipulated, or have jealousy projected on it, or greed, or things like that. Like a really empowered, amazing woman wants to not have those level of projection, but she wants someone that can hold her deeply and let her flow and be a rock if she wants to come to that, but not to be controlled. And a lot of stuff around money is controlling. Right. But that also comes from human evolution. I mean, we can also talk to that, but there's a lot of elements around like money and things in the realm of matter where, as a coping mechanism, we look to control something. And the financial system is very much about that too, especially in how that's developed over the last, basically since like around 1970, so 50, 60 years, where we moved away from what was called the gold standard into fractional reserve banking, and things just went insane after that.
Right.
Basically money just became like not linked to value anymore.
Yeah, because the actual reserve, there was no reserve. Right, that would also happen. At the moment, there was supposed to be, your promissory note was supposed to be holding some form of gold bullion in a reserve somewhere, but that just doesn't exist anymore.
That's what I'm.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, the gold standard was
right.
a system that used to exist, and then the entire financial system moved away from that, which was very recently, actually. It was in the 70s.
Right.
And it moved into a fractional system where you didn't need to have 100% of gold for all the money that existed, just a fraction.
Insane.
So central banks just printed insane amounts of money.
Yeah.
And now we're in a system where money itself is created by central banks. And the central banks, when they create it, it's just in a database, like, cool, the American Fed, that's what the American central bank is kind of referred to as, creates money in their own system.
Yeah.
And then to put it into the financial system, they'll go to a local bank and they give them debt. They say, we'll loan you this money that we've created out of nowhere, and in return, it's an exchange. In return for that money that we just created, pay us interest.
Yeah, it's insane.
So interest is embedded into the very creation of money. And so money needs to work, it needs to produce in order just to pay itself off.
Yeah, it's constantly debt-based.
It's constantly debt-based.
Yeah.
The entire financial system is based on debt.
Right, and then we're in a slave culture for that, because those that are trying to get money, it never holds any value anyway, so it's always changing. So you're always chasing what's not there.
Yeah, I mean, inflation also is a function of the amount of money that's printed. So the reason why we have so much inflation at the moment is because central banks around the world printed an insane amount of money during COVID. Like, I don't know what the most up-to-date statistic is right now, but I think roughly around a year ago, 40% of all the dollars that have ever existed have come into existence in like the last year.
It's just insane.
And so inflation goes high because actually there's more dollars. So what inflation is there's more dollars, so each dollar is now worth less.
Right.
And so the price of everything goes up because a sandwich still has an intrinsic value, but the dollar is worth less, so a sandwich costs more in dollars. That's inflation.
Yes.
And
that can't last, which is what we're seeing, right?
Yeah, I mean, inflation can be offset by growth. So if an economy grows faster than it inflates, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but we can't continue to keep growing.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
at the speed that would be needed.
I mean, economic growth in the world is fueled by debt. So growth is coming with debt. So the whole system is just fucked.
Yeah, it's fucked. Yeah,
like totally.
Yeah, take a breath there. Yeah, because I'm listening to a podcast at the moment. I sent it to you, I know, but it's not a joke, because when we talk about sovereignty, self-empowerment, and actually bringing it back to what you said about what you're doing around, soulpreneur, plugging people into what they really want to express and share, we have a friend who we recently read a post from her now of like trying to navigate in the kind of crumbling old system but birth something new is not easy. Because it's like, how do you manage when we're still kind of in between worlds as well? Mm-hmm. So there's all of that going on as well. And then you can understand, maybe just bringing in a little compassion here and empathy, you can understand why it heightens the level of fear. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because people are scared. If you think about, we just said earlier, like everybody's scared and it's a big taboo, but it links into speaking truth and expressing our sexuality, or saying that we're gay or we like a certain thing. People don't want to talk about that, right? Because all of a sudden our so-called society doesn't allow that. Yeah, we're not allowed to share our kinky quirks, or we're not allowed to speak our truth because witches got hung on the stake, right? And so on and so forth. We know that there's this ancestral line of violence and suffering that results in, when we speak our truth, we express our sexuality, or we don't have money, right? Because there's so much violence associated with the trying to get, right, to take. Yeah, it talks about the shadow. No, we spoke about that last night. So this really layered, huh? There's a layered of this idea of like, well, this is the system we're in, and what are the solutions to navigate that, and also create an abundant, a potentially abundant resource, right, or value, a value. And he's saying in there that cryptocurrencies are the only way, because now, you know, all of these other fiat currencies have to crumble. We can't continue. But anyway, I don't know. You know, I want you to go into the, you know, the whole money thing. But I know we're in it. But you know what I mean. It can get distorted, and there's so many opinions, and I'm just like navigating through it in the gift. You know.
There's a few pieces you mentioned there that I want to say a few words to around. Yeah, a lot of it comes down to, for me, like value and control, right? So when you talk about us not being able to express ourselves sexually in terms of kinks or whatever it might be, just any form of sexual expression, that was the reason I believe that that's the case now, is because of actually religion in many cases, but also governments in a sense, because if you take away someone's ability to connect to their sexual liberation, you can control a person more easily, right? And so that's what religion does, Christianity in particular. Well, a lot of religions actually. Like, sexuality is bad. Get married and then have children, and sex before even that point is a sin. And don't express anything, don't tell anyone about anything. Yeah, cool, okay. If you do that, then people are easy to control, literally. And once someone is liberated sexually in whatever way is you know, kind of in alignment with them, it's much harder to control a person because they're a free sovereign being. And exactly the same thing is true of money. If you can control people through money, and this is more the government area, which like has evolved also from kingdoms, where kingdoms evolved into countries, and then political systems kind of arrived as a result of that in a way. And those systems control people through money. They control people through the need to produce. And this is linked also to the whole debt-based part of society. It's like the best way to control people is put everyone in debt. And even if it's in a sneaky way, by putting money itself into debt. Yeah. So there's no way to escape that system, because it's an inflationary debt-based system. Right. So everyone needs to produce. And then in comes the Industrial Revolution and our entire modern education system, which is all about like teaching people to be a good worker in a factory. Finish your school, learn these things, don't learn how to think for yourself. And when you finish, go work for a company for 10, 20 years, 50 years, and just be an obedient worker. And you are valued based on how much money you create, right? Yeah. That's a system of control.
Yeah, I'm feeling that like in my whole body, you know? Yeah. There's like I could feel my hands stiffening up.
Yeah, it's dense.
Yeah, thank you for like breaking it down like that. I want to just say, as always, for those tuning in, I know we're using these terms, Christianity. Maybe you're Christian and you're like, don't blame Christians. And when we're talking about sexual energy, we're talking about life force, right? We're talking about the sovereign life force, the freedom of our expression, to put ourselves out of what Craig so beautifully described, this what I call the invisible prison. And sometimes we hear the them and us, and we're not saying, it's just them, and it's the whatever, the Bilderberg group, it's all these, and then we just don't know, and we play this them and us game. We have to take full responsibility and come back and go, this is the system now that is self-perpetuating, that everybody just autopilot and default went into it. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because when we see the system for what it is and the game for what it is, we can be like, we can come out of that. Because you can go, I don't acquiesce. Mm-hmm. I just want to bring that in now.
Yeah, beautiful.
Just as a way of going. It's not just going, they're the ones, the problem, the government. But we, the people, have the power when we see the game that we acquiesce to unconsciously.
Yeah. For me, I'm 100% with you. I have a different way of thinking or talking about that. Have you heard of integral theory?
From Ken Wilber?
Yeah.
A little.
Okay, so there's one concept in there that I think is exactly what you're talking to, which is what he calls all quadrants, all regions, all levels, AQAL. And basically it describes four different quadrants of experience. There's collective. If you imagine a cross, there's collective and there's individual, and then there's external and internal. So on the collective level, you have the external collective level, which is society. It's the highest systems. That's where systems reside. And we're talking about systems, which is a collective external experience. And then there's the collective internal experience, which is culture, right? So the country that I'm born in, the culture of that, the ethnicity, whatever it might be, it's a collective experience that I experienced individually, and that individuals experience. And then there's the individual experience, external, which is like the its, and then there's the I, the internal part. And a lot of what we're talking about here in terms of systems, for me, is we're talking about collective systems that individuals find themselves in. And the more awareness I have of the systems that I am in, that allows me to then interpret, do I want to take that on as part of my individual experience? Or do I want to actually say, you know what, I don't resonate with that. I don't resonate with this. That belief was put on me. This is a generational thing. This is from my family. And if I'm just aware of where things come from, then I can create more space between my experience and those concepts. And that's why I like talking about the high level system stuff, because we are part of that system, whether we want to acknowledge it or not.
Exactly.
I do think there's something risky about saying fuck the system.
Right.
Let's go create some other system.
Right.
Because you're fighting against just an inherently, massive, unbeatable force. In some ways.
Yeah,
right?
The beast.
Yeah. So I mean, that's going to be the most difficult path. I think trying to find ways of being in a system, accepting the system for what it is, and at the same time actually working within that system is a healthier way, because it's just less energy to try and completely reject a system that I'm part of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fighting, it's the eye for an eye, right? It's no point fighting it.
Yeah.
Like, and even when we get angry and we get like, this is not right? Because there's certain things that are just genuinely not right when we look at it. I know we can play here conceptually with there is no right and wrong and everything's perfect. I like to play in that realm, and it definitely is, as Ram Dass and many other teachers have kind of pointed to and alluded to over the years. But at the same time, when it comes to value, when it comes to certain things in life, there's like a deep innate knowing when something is off. Something is not, aligned, let's say. There's a frequency in match, You can know this with music. You can hear it when you're listening to somebody. It's not to say that person can't sing and they shouldn't sing but you can hear a melody. You can hear a song. You can hear a tone. You can hear it, and you're like, oh, that's really music to my ears. This is a little off. It's okay. Keep going. You don't want to judge them, but at the same time, it's not aligned, right? That's what I'm playing at here, and it's lovely what you said. But fighting it doesn't help.
Yeah.
It's actually seeing it as you've described, and then taking the full responsibility for the nature of our experience. This is where we are, that's sovereignty. And then making a conscious decision and a choice to put our energy in a different place. Because then the old things fall away in and of themselves, right? There's a beautiful video, I just want to throw this in here, and maybe I'll put it in the footnotes, called the Pyramid and the Pool. Have you seen that video? No. It's a beautiful video where a woman describes, it's just a 5-6 minute video. I'm going to put it in the description, and she describes the way systems can crumble and fall. And she talks about there's basically a pool with this is all made of sugar cubes, and then she puts this like dye in the bottom, and she's talking about how when each of us make this change, when each of us do this work, what you're talking about, and we start to face things differently, and we take responsibility, and we're all doing that work, it's all happening underground.
Yeah,
it's all happening in the base, in the pool, right? And of course, this peak point, which seems to be still alive, still happening, that doesn't just fall. Even if you wanted it to fall, it doesn't just fall straight away.
Yeah.
It's actually the last thing that gets to the bottom of the dissolving sugar cubes. Yeah, so it falls from the from the baseline where we shift. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And then you see it crumble. And sometimes we look out in the world and we go, well, is anything really changing? Is anything happening? And like, that's still going on. War's still happening. All this, it's poverty still happening, yada, yada, yada. But all of those, they can't change, from the top, basically. They change from the bottom. Anyway, that's what I wanted to throw in the pot.
Beautiful.
So good. How are you feeling? Continue. Where are we going next?
I mean, it's going to money, bro.
Yes. We're kind of been skirting around. So
Yeah.
Let's dive in.
So I'm okay. What do you want to know? What do you want to talk about as money? I'm curious what's alive in you right now.
Well, in this moment, as you know, I live in what is called the gift culture, right? So where I'm at the moment is this dance between wanting to magnetize more flow of money, currency, and we didn't say this earlier, but the currency, the flow, in order to support others to be able to support me with what I'm doing and offering in the world, which is what you're kind of the bridge between. And what I come up against so often is the dance between, in order to create more, express more in the world, or have certain things that are working more fluidly, I find myself in a catch-22 at times. Because, if I want to pay these beings, whatever, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 6,000 euros a month or whatever, in order to have a team, I need to then raise 12,000. That puts me in a level of pressure. And I get this sense that I'm then pulled into that kind of realm of, striving, more work, more, more, doing more to make more. And there's this, I've always had this dance with myself around more is not necessarily more. Less is actually more. And then last thing I say to you is I keep having this story of the businessman and the fisherman pop up, where the idea that you can be in a certain level of embodiment, you can be in a certain place of the way you live life, you enjoy and so on, and then the system, call it the culture that we're in, paying bills, paying rent, paying tax, all these things, almost dictate to me certain actions that I don't necessarily want to be a part of. So that's my dance with money. And that's one of the reasons why I started living in the gift culture, 12 years ago, was this sense of that there's enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. And that if we all just took what we needed and give and circulated money, and then everybody would actually have what they need, right? And if we were able to share our skills, gifts and resources in a real collaborative way, which you speak about, we would be able to achieve more and create more anyway. But to make that happen is often so hard because everybody's in this kind of rigid fear, almost like needing to, make what they need to make and don't trust and so on. So I've had a very interesting dance with that over the last sort of 10 years. Yeah. Does that any make sense?
I love that you brought that up, and I have some contrarian views on some of that I'd love to unpack.
Yeah,
because I really see some shadows in the field in that space.
Beautiful.
It's going to take me a little while to unpack. So
does this feel?
Yeah,
this feels.
This is
on
perfect.
point?
Perfect. I want to introduce a framework first so that we can then explore that I'm sure you're aware of, and also probably some of your listeners, which is the Wheel of Consent. So I created a thing recently called the Wheel of Money, which is very much inspired by the Wheel of Consent created by Dr. Betty Martin, and it's just applying money to that. So let me just quickly describe that.
Not quickly. Not quickly. Let this land, because maybe some of you listening don't know Betty Martin and the Wheel of Consent. And for us, in the field that we're in around intimacy, communication, sexuality, please go and check her body of work out at bettymartin.org. .org, I believe.
No, it's schoolofconsent.org.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Schoolofconsent.org. Perfect.
Schoolofconsent.org, yeah.
Yeah, carry on.
So anyway, so this concept of like the wheel of money is not affiliated to that somehow. It's just inspired by that body of work.
Thank you for that.
So so how it works is, if you imagine a circle, and that circle is the circle of consent, the wheel of consent. And so anything inside of that circle is consensual. And anything outside of that circle is in the shadow. So you can think of the shadow as less healthy, less integrated, and inside of the circle, underdeveloped, yeah. Inside of the circle is more the healthy expressions of different things. And if you imagine a circle and you imagine a cross going directly through it, vertical and a horizontal axis going through that, you break it down into 4 quadrants. And the top half of that wheel is the top half of that wheel is a space of giving something for, and it's for them. It's for someone else. So if anything happens in the top 2 quadrants, in the top half, it's about giving something for someone else. In the bottom half, it's about receiving something, and it's about me, receiving something for me. So the top half, giving something for someone else, bottom half, receiving something for me. The right hand side of that cross, so the right 2 quadrants on the cross, when we're talking about the wheel of money, is you are spending. You are spending money. So if anything happens on the right, you are spending money. And then on the left, they are spending money. So that's the description of the axes, right? And then within those axes, you've got the 4 quadrants. The top right-hand quadrant is in the space of giving for someone else, where I am spending. So this is giving. Freely giving without the expectation of receiving anything in return. I'm spending money to give something for someone else. It's just a charity. I'm giving charity. That's a good example of consensual example of giving. I'm giving something to charity. A non-consensual shadow element of giving would be someone that's a savior, for example, embodying a savior type of energy, where I'm spending money to give something to someone else to make myself feel better. So an example is like someone that gives to charity but posts about it on social media in order to get some money from that or get some attention from that. That's like a shadow element. The person's still giving something that they've spent money on, so there's a beautiful element to it, but there's also a shadow side to that. And we can talk a bit more about how some of those shadow things unfold once I've explained more of the framework, but that's an example of a non-consensual giving. On the other side, on the bottom left, you've got the realm of receiving. And in the receiving side, what's happening there is someone else is spending money and I'm receiving something for me. So a consensual thing would be, I'm a receiver. I'm receiving something. I'm receiving a gift. Maybe it's a birthday gift. It's my birthday. Someone else has spent money to buy something for me, and I'm receiving something where someone else has spent money. Beautiful. And in the receiving energy, the important part is that the energy between giving and receiving is one directional. It's just the giver spending money and giving something, and the receiver is receiving something openly, without the expectation of giving anything in return. It's not a transaction at all. Giving and receiving is just openly, like, how much can I allow myself to receive? In the non-consensual side of receiving in the wheel of money, you've got freeloader, someone that is entitled, like entitlement. I expect to receive things for free. I expect to receive a dinner for free when I go on a date. I expect to receive a discount from my friends when I consume one of their products or their services, or whatever it might be. I'm entitled, and I'm in the shadow of receiving, and I feel entitled to receive things for free. And that's one type of example of a non-consensual form of receiving when it comes to the financial side. You can also apply it to, consent and sexuality, other things like that. But in money in particular, it's like freeloader, I think, is a good example. And then in the bottom right corner, you've got the space of I'm spending money and receiving something for me. It's taking. And actually, taking is a very complicated, misunderstood energy within this wheel, because there's a lot more non-consensual examples of taking than there are consensual ones. But I actually think, interestingly enough, when you look at money and taking, it's actually a lot easier to connect to consensual taking, right? So again, what is taking? Money, in the wheel of money, spending money to receive something for me. I'm just buying something. I'm buying something. I'm buying a sandwich. I'm giving you money, and it's a trade. It's an exchange. I'm giving someone money, and I'm receiving a sandwich in return for me. I'm a buyer. It's easy to understand that conceptually. Or an investor. I'm investing in myself or someone else. Actually, no, because it's in the realm of me. I'm investing for me. So maybe I'm investing in a share of a company, but maybe I'm investing in going to a retreat. I'm paying a facilitator money, and I'm receiving an experience that's for me. I'm consensually taking. I'm taking action, and I'm using money to take that action, and I'm receiving something in return for that. Beautiful. On the non-consensual side of taking, it's like a thief, where...
I've been there.
Yeah, or greed. But let's look at a thief, and I'm happy to unpack that more, but it's essentially, taking something without paying for it. Or greedy, where it's like, I'm taking more than I paid for. Or I'm underpaying for something and taking more. So I can still be paying, but I'm taking more than I've paid for, not my fair share. That's in the shadow, Or I just don't pay anything, and then it's straight up thievery, right? And on the other side of that is, in the top left-hand side, is allowing. And that's in the quadrant of giving something for someone else where they are spending. So I'm making a sandwich, and I'm allowing someone to give me money in an exchange, and I'm giving them the sandwich in return. So in the polarity between taking and allowing, energy is going both ways. So there's a trade that happens between taking and allowing. And in giving and receiving, there's not a trade. It's just a one-directional from giving to receiving. So in the allowing side, consensual examples of that will be a server, someone in service, whatever it might be. I'm providing a service, right? Like I provide a service to someone, that's what I give them, and they give me money in return. Or I'm a facilitator. I'm facilitating an experience, and I'm giving someone an experience. I'm allowing them to have an experience for them, and they're paying me money for it as the one facilitating that experience. Those are consensual examples in a monetary sense of allowing. And then there's a non-consensual element of allowing, where essentially, what are examples of that? Let me think about it. One is actually the something I call a donatrix, which is a shadow side of a gift economy, where I'm in allowing, right? So I'm in the quadrant of giving something for someone else and getting paid for it. So it's their money, but I'm not actually sitting. So let's take an example of a facilitator. So I'm in the quadrant of creating an experience, but I'm in the shadow, right? So maybe I don't sit and value myself enough in the service that I'm creating and providing and showing up in the world. And so I'm not able to say to the person on the other side of that exchange, because it's an exchange energy when I'm in allowing and someone else is in taking, and we're having an exchange where energy is flowing in both directions, right? But I'm not able to actually say, you know what, this experience that I'm selling costs X amount of money, because I'm just not at that point yet. And so what I then do is I ask the person to make a donation. I say, you know what, I'm providing you this service, please make a donation. Give something to me, but I'm not going to tell you how much. That's a shadow, because the person in taking is in an exchange, but they're being asked to meet the person that's allowing them to have an experience. They've been asked to meet that person in giving. So you're asking the person on the other side of the exchange to meet you in giving. But giving is the space of freely giving without expecting to receive anything in return. It's a one-directional thing. A donation, the consensual part of giving, is one-directional. So if I'm a facilitator in the space of allowing, asking someone to have an exchange with me, and I'm not able to sit deeply in the value of what I'm doing, and I tell that person, hey, please make a donation, I'm asking them to meet me not in polarity. I'm asking them to meet me in an energy of giving something for someone else without expecting to receive something in return. But it's a transaction. So it creates tension. It creates tension in the body because I'm asking someone to meet me somewhere else, because I'm not accepting that I'm actually in a transaction with someone else, because I'm uncomfortable with that. Because I don't feel comfortable enough to ask that person for what I need for this transaction. I'm not comfortable enough to ask them for what I want to receive, actually.
So what you're pointing to is that the one that's playing in that is a facilitator actually wants to put a price on it, but they can't. That's the shadow. If not, they would just be playing in the giving and the receiving, which is, I'm just offering this and you can give what you choose.
No, giving and receiving. Okay, so yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yes, but that's the shadow you're talking about.
No, because it's not just pure shadow. Because on some level, if the gift is not a shadow, if you genuinely are open to receive whatever comes back, it's only a shadow. And I've been in this myself, so I know it. It's only a shadow when I'm saying it's a gift or donation, whatever term you want to use. But really, I do want 125 euros for my my offering.
I disagree.
Yeah,
I disagree.
Then it's a shadow.
No, I disagree. I think that okay, if I'm in a space of having an offer that I'm giving to someone else, and part of that offer is a transaction where I'm expecting to receive something in return, whatever it might be, I'm not freely giving. Right?
If you're expecting something in return.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm expecting something in return, meaning if it's a transaction.
Yeah, but it's nuance, huh? I've been in this for 12 years. I get it. It's nuance. So like Charles Eisenstein does a beautiful course on this called Living in the Gift. So if zero isn't abundance, if you're living in the gift, and it's different. You're not talking about the gift in your model. You're talking about giving and receiving. And You're talking about donation. Mm-hmm. Donation isn't a gift.
Yeah, I know.
So this is another distinction to understand. Donation is donation, meaning donation means if I give you 1p, 10p or 50p, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a donation. Mm-hmm. That's cool. You're happy to have donations, right? Donation and the gift is slightly different. The gift is you are willing to give me whatever you choose to give me, right? It's subtle, but there is, based in the gift, it's subtle, right? It's like there is a transaction. But at the same time, if zero is not abundant, listen to this, if zero isn't abundant, you shouldn't even exercise the gift. Don't even go into the gift. Mm-hmm. Make sense?
Yeah.
If zero isn't abundant. So that means if I do a retreat, I do an event, I do a book, I put it out there as a gift. If we're playing with this, I know it's subtle. And if some of you are getting lost on this, stay with us. Yeah. Because when we're playing with all these subtleties, I know it can get head-based and you just have to take a breath. But if you're playing with the gift, if I'm offering myself as a gift, and if you give me zero, because it doesn't have to be transactional, if I'm not happy with that, then I'm in the shadow. Because what I'm actually doing is I'm going, I really need some money to come from this, but I kind of want to play with this like model. And at the same time, I want to try something different, or I want to be a little bit more superior, or I'm against the system, and I'm going into this gifting because I don't believe in the money. I think money's horrible. I don't believe in the system. And at the same time, but I really need money, right? That's when you're playing in the gift. Okay. In the shadow.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Does it make sense? It's
Absolutely.
Subtle.
So this is what how I would describe that in this framework I've just introduced is that someone, if they're giving, right? So if they're in the consensual part of giving, which is literally just I have a gift that I'm spending my money or my energy on. that I'm going to give to you, and I don't expect to receive anything in return. I've just given you something freely. And someone on the other side is in receiving, where it's like, fuck, beautiful, I'm just receiving that, amazing. That is one particular type of polarity.
Totally.
And where the shadow comes in is when people are not in that, right? So they're in taking and allowing, and they're in a transactional space. I'm giving you this massage, and it's my realm of service. And give me whatever you want in return. And then the person gives me nothing, or gives me 50, but I wanted 100. And I'm frustrated about that. Yeah, I'm in the shadow because I couldn't stand in my own value and say, I want a fucking 100.
Yeah.
And that's where the shadow part comes in. And the shadow there, if you think about it, it's like, that's what I mean by asking someone to meet me somewhere else from the shadow.
Yeah.
In the allowing part, because I'm pretending to be in receiving.
Yeah.
Or giving.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but it makes sense for me because of the wheel of consent.
Exactly.
But for those listening that maybe don't have understanding of the wheel of consent, and tell us in the comments, actually, can you see how this really does link into sexuality or intimacy? Because what Craig's describing, I really don't want to lose you in this, because what Craig's doing, this is a new thing that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And the way that he's weaving in the wheel of consent, but in relation to money, for me makes a lot of sense, because money is just an energy. And when we're sharing ourselves, we're energy beings. And when we're sharing intimacy and we're going into dynamics of relating, like this is so linked up in the way that we give, receive, take, and ask, right? And ask for what we want, because so often we can't ask for what we want. And Craig recently did a money game as well, which really highlighted these aspects. Yeah, but I just want to bring that in. So I let us know how this is landing, because I know that I remember when I first listened to the Wheel of Consent from Betty Martin, I was like afterwards completely fried. Right?
You know what I can also suggest?
Yeah.
Let's drop in the footnotes a video and a post that I've made about this Wheel of Money. So if anyone's like listening and confused, they can also look there. There's a visual, and then maybe they can come back or whatever it might be. Like, so if you got lost in that somehow, or you're a visual person and you want to look at that, then just have a look at the post in the footnotes, and we can see what unfolds from that.
Yeah, beautiful. And even if you've got this far, maybe pause the podcast, go to that video, listen, look at that, see that, and then come back to the talk, because that would also be beneficial.
Yeah, it's dense, huh?
Yeah, well, the thing is, you're playing. I can see how your mind works, right? It's beautiful, because we've had a few conversations this morning. You are systems based, right? Even this morning, you was describing to me different things. You thrive on that. But you also said something lovely this morning, that some people just don't, right?
Yeah.
They don't meet in that way. So if there's is there more to share on this? But is there a way to drop into this for those that maybe can't grab that system based? Like, how would you get them to land that right now? Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does.
And maybe we don't need to go there. I'm just, if you're still in a flow and you're taking us somewhere, then stay there.
I think it comes down to a somatic experience for people that are
like what we did, the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
For people that are, where it's more difficult to connect to something mentally, but it's easier to connect to something through the body that they can feel, then a somatic experience is the best way to experience this. To be honest, I haven't figured out a way yet to create a somatic experience around this online. So at the moment, I'm offering that in person.
Yeah.
It's just an easier dynamic to navigate in person with the somatic part of it. So if people are curious around that, then they can have a look at my in-person offerings. And at some point, it's a drive of mine to figure out how to create that in an online space. But it's a little bit tricky at the moment.
Yeah, that's fine. I have a question popping.
Yeah.
Is it a good time? Can I
Sure,
ask a question?
sure.
Just to drop into you for a minute, because you're on this mission, you're on this vision, you've got the evolution of us, you're there, you've got this system base. You want to really help people get an understanding of their relationship to money, and how they can transcend that beyond the shadows and empower themselves. Yeah, would that be a good enough description?
Beautiful.
Right. I love. Do you know Simon Sinek?
No.
Simon Sinek you would love his systems, right? He did something start with why. You may have heard of this. So whenever we're co-creating something or we're going out in the world, he talks about the, in anything we're creating, understand your what and your why, and the how takes care of itself, right? And he always uses this example, and I love to share this now for you all, is like when Martin Luther King brought, more than 200,000 people to the park in order to listen to his, famous speak. There wasn't marketing, there wasn't social media, there was none of that stuff at that time, right? Maybe there was some printouts or whatever, little posters. But ultimately, 200,000 people come to meet and listen to him speak, right? Phenomenal. And he was just kind of breaking that down and say, why? Because he didn't say, I have a plan. He says, I have a dream. And that dream, the what and the why, at that time, linked in exactly to a collective vibration of beings who also, had the same what and why, and the how took care of itself.
Yeah.
It just formed. So I would love to know what's popping up for me is like Craig's what and why, and what is it you're doing? Well, we can see that now. You're creating systems, you're bringing people together, but there might be some other things, and the why. What is your why? Why are you driven by this right now? Does that feel cool? I just love to drop into that.
Absolutely. The why for me is purpose. Like, I relate to why in the sense of purpose. So when I hear you ask me what's my why, it's like, what's my purpose in a way? And my purpose, as I was talking about earlier, is to be in support, to be in service of the awakening of humanity, of the expansion of humanity, and the what and the how of how that expresses is in actually working in the soul field to find ways to expand that entire field, because that for me is the space that is awakening humanity, that is expanding consciousness, that is expanding the collective. And it's a collective space, it's a we space, it's not an I space. And in that space itself, one of the things that I feel a call coming through me, a channel coming through me, is to support that space in the money topic, so that the soul field can actually siphon in and attract in and pull in energy and money from elsewhere, where it is infinitely abundant already. And it is infinitely abundant also in the soul space, but in terms of offerings and how people express that through the I, comes in scarcity and fear, and not enough people in my belief, not enough people standing deeply in their offerings and actually asking for what they need so that they can be deeper in service, so that they can serve in a broader way, and that more people can come in and be in service. And I think there's two parts of that in the field that I see as a why and a it's not really going into the how, but I feel that in the field of soul service, there's participants, and then there's facilitators in a way. And both sides of those have shadows around money. On the participant side, there's the non-consensual part of receiving, freeloader element, I feel, that's unfortunately quite prevalent. Consuming and expecting to receive things for free. It's like, there's a lot of people that just want to receive free offerings. And what that means is that there's less support available for beings that are dedicating their lives to being in service, because we also have financial needs to live in the world, in the systems that we exist in. And if people on the receiving side are not prepared to pay money to others that are in service and giving their gifts, or allowing, actually, in a trade, right? They're not just giving freely, they're people that are allowing. It limits the growth of the soul field, in the sense of there is more energy available, but it's not freely flowing in that system.
But why? Why is that?
Because of limiting beliefs around money.
And also, many of them who need the freeness don't have any.
Yeah.
They don't have money.
Yeah.
They literally don't have money.
But exactly, I agree with that. And what I'm trying to come in with is, okay, so money is a problem in the space. And how do we work on money? Well, with money. If you think about other elements of life, where if I want to work on my health, I'm going to invest energy and probably money also into that, right? At some point, like I'm going to buy healthy food, or I'm going to go to a doctor, or I'm going to invest in a gym membership or a yoga thing, and I expect then to receive a health benefit from it. That makes sense. I can also think about relationships. If I want to have better connection or relationships in my life, I'm going to put energy into that. And then I'm going to be able to harvest the rewards from that energy.
Well, many don't actually. I want to just say many don't in their relationships.
Also true,
right? You know, in general, like
yes.
Many I meet, I support people in relationship, and you know, you ask them if they've ever read a book on relationship or they've done it, and many just haven't. It's kind of like dip in the dark.
And then what happens? They don't get to reap the rewards of it. And so the same is true with money. If someone wants to work on their relationship to money and have more of it in their life, how can you expect to change if you don't put money into that? In the same way,
and focus, even
energy, exactly. I mean, money is energy.
Yes,
right?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Even energy, because
exactly.
there are free resources, many beautiful free resources that I found, and one being Charles Eisenstein's course, which is as a very small part about money, but it's fully there as a gift. Fully there. You can give 0, or you can give 1,000 euros. It doesn't matter, right? So there's many resources that are there that can help. Maybe I want to know if this is coming up for you in your experience. Do people know that that's even an option?
I first want to finish the points on that, and then I'll come back to that. Like the important thing I'm trying to get across here is that you're saying that many people in the field don't have money, and I'm saying I agree, and I want to help with that. And part of helping with that is that people need to be prepared to put energy into their relationship with money, and probably also money into their relationship with money at a certain point, so that they can have more ease with money flowing in and out of their lives.
Yes.
And you need to get that in order to expand the amount of like money that you're comfortable flowing through your system. And if someone's stuck and feeling stuck around money, in order to move out of stuckness, you need to move energy with regards to your relationship to money. And if someone's in a scarcity mindset of, well, I don't have money and I can't pay for these things and I can't do all of these things because I just don't have money, then that's a surefire way of staying in that place. That's a guaranteed, if you're not putting energy into your relationship with money, your relationship to money is not going to improve.
100%. Yeah. And I want to bring in something here, because there's also the shadow aspect of the little narrative that goes around at the moment in the so-called self-development spiritual realm that we're talking about, soul space that we're talking about, which is, if you don't have money, then you don't know your value and your worth, and you're not, you need to step up, you need to get money to be that. Or if you're not getting 6 figures, 7 figures, like personally, that whole 6-figure, 7-figure thing completely, for me, is a manipulative distortion that so many so-called coaches and people are putting out there to make themselves feel good, which is what you pointed about earlier. It's kind of a shadow aspect. Yeah, because if you're making 6 figures, good for you. Enjoy it and circulate it. Give it, don't give it, put it into beautiful things, But to keep throwing that in the face of other beings and say, well, you need to be doing this, you need to be earning 6 figures, you need to be a coach. That for me comes into what you pointed earlier, which is shadow, which also makes certain beings that are striving to do good or maybe have a better relationship with money feel inadequate. Feel, I'm in a competitive rate now. Oh, this coach is making more money than me. Oh, they made 6 figures. You end up in this kind of battle to become somebody based on that narrative of, I need to make more money, be more, da-da-da-da.
Yeah, I really agree.
Does it make sense? It's subtle, but I'm seeing this in the field as well.
You know what it is? In the same way that sex sells, money sells.
Right.
And that's what those offerings are. I agree. It's in a shadow. It's people that are from a manipulative place selling to others, hey, come work with me and you can make X amount of money.
Right.
And I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with saying, come work with me on money. Let's find ways to make money flow more in your life.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
Right.
That's a consensual way.
Right. I've turned my life around and I'm now making a lot of money, right? And I'd like to now use that as a way to teach you and help you to also do what I did, But not like, look at me, I'm now the superior spiritual being that's making a load of money and you need to be like me.
Yeah.
And I've got the formula, but you need to pay 5,000 euros for that formula and coaching, and you don't have the 5,000 euros, but you need to work on yourself to be able to get the 5,000 euros so you can afford to do the 5,000 euro training. When you can do the 5,000 euro training, you're going to learn what I've learned. that for me just is nonsense, right? Because you can learn so much of what I teach for free. On YouTube right now, you can do everything that I know for free. So there's a dance with
maybe.
Yeah? No, well,
let's slow down there for a sec.
But do you see what I'm going? I can tell you now that everything that I share, you can access on YouTube for free.
Okay, I would like to talk to two different things there because there's a lot in that, including some shadows.
Good. Let's out them.
Yeah. So something I've experienced, which is actually super challenging. I'm still figuring it out. Like I'm still navigating how to go about the communication and the marketing and the sales part of having offerings around money. Because it is this taboo thing, like we've unpacked earlier. So it's this topic that's really difficult. And when the offering itself is around money, like let's work on money, and it takes money to work on that offering, it's like a double layered thing. If you compare that to something else, like an offering to work on sexuality, or an offering to work on intimacy or relationships, that is a paid offering that you have to pay for to do it. Someone will be like, yes, I want to work on relationships, and I'll pay money to work on that because I resonate with this offering, right? So it's like it feels less dense to me when it's that than it is when the topic is, hey, let's work on money, and it costs you money to work on money. Right. So figuring out how to communicate around that in a consensual way is kind of tricky. And what you referred to earlier, where people in the offering of money are saying, hey, come do this course and you're going to earn 6 figures, you're going to earn 7 figures. That's where I'm saying it's like money sells. And I think that's a shadow if it's marketed and positioned in that particular way. Because also it's such a conflict of interest. If I'm saying, hey, I'm making 6-7 figures and I'm claiming I'm doing that on Instagram, so come work with me, I'll teach you how to make money. How do you actually know if I'm making 6 or 7 figures? I can say whatever the fuck I want. You don't have a way to actually verify that, right? So I'm claiming to be the thing I am, and then asking you to come and do that in a shadow way where the offering is itself the shadow. So it's like kind of a mess in a way. And I think there are a lot of people doing that, and I don't resonate with that at all. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having a paid offering around money. And yes, you're right. Now to the other point that you were talking about, that there are free resources available in the world. But I don't think that facilitators or people making offerings around money, it's not so much about the theory side, which is what you can receive for free in many places. Like education in many places is free. What's actually being sold is the implementation. What's actually being sold is accountability, integration. Let's take theory and let's work together on implementing that in our lives. And that process and holding someone through that process is a consensual paid offering. So yeah, you can go out and you can consume the stuff for free, but there is so much free information out there. Are people actually using it in their lives? No, because people struggle with integration and they struggle with implementation. So I would invite you to look at paid offerings from also a different perspective, that maybe what's being offered and what people would pay for is support on integration. Oh no, for sure. I mean, I already get that. There's a woman that's super successful in the world called Maria something, can't even remember her name. She created something called the B School. And one of her main teachings was that there are free offerings everywhere, but what somebody's paying for is the way that you assimilate those free offerings and you've made them your own and put them into a package and now you can sell. Because that person can come to you, go through that process with you, and you've done the work in order, there's value in that. There's value in assimilating information and putting it in a way that's digestible. Because people can get completely confused. I'm not saying that, I guess where I come from is twofold. I come from nothing. I come from the council estate. I come from the crime. I was a criminal, right? So I stole to get what I got. I come from where my mum was stealing in shops to get us stuff, right? So I come from the lack, the scarcity, the poverty paradigm. And so I think where I took myself and put myself is so much of it is being through, not without paying. If I look back, paying inadvertently. You could say that I haven't paid specifically for certain training along the way, but I paid for life experience
because the life experience has given me the teaching. So, you know, you could say that much of my journey has all been paid. You don't do anything without money. But what I really like to look at is that there are genuine beings who have no clue, including myself in this, how to make money, how money works, how money communicates. Like, you know, I told you a book earlier that I read called Earth is Hiring by Peter Kelly. And her whole, she did this little sequence called Money Magic, and you've now called yours Money Medicine, right? Which you didn't know, you know, it's like, and there's a whole ingrained, like, default way that we function about money, about value, about exchange, about everything we're speaking about today. And in order to bring ourselves into maybe what I believe you are inviting us into as well, the realm where you're playing, is there's a relearning, a re-education, a literally an education that has to happen. Like, for example, you use the word spending. I don't use the word spending. I use the word investing. Yeah. She taught me to not use the word spend. The reason being, the difference of the word spent means that if you're spent, if I say to you, man, Craig, bro, I'm spent, just leave me here. You're like, size done. You know what I mean? Leave him for a minute. He's finished. There's nothing left in him. So when we say I spent that, or I'm spending this, we're already saying to money itself. She also says money has ears. Money is listening. It's an energetic form. It hears you. When you say, I don't have enough, oh man, that's too expensive. Oh, it's not enough to go around. Money doesn't grow on trees. It's hearing you. Yeah. You have an inbuilt terminology. You're vibrating that energy. If you say, no, there's never enough, or you're checking the price tag every time you go into a shop, and you're like, you know, you look at that. I see myself still do that sometimes, right? It's default. I look at something, I'm like, it looks amazing. And then I check the price tag. She says that if you see something and you're vibrating towards it and you want it, why can't you just have that energetically? The minute you go to the price tag and you look at it, you're already going, I can't take that because it's too much, right? Little nuances like this. So I'm bringing this in just to say that it's just not easy for some beings out there to just say, hey, this course is $350. And me and you might go, man, $350, that's easy to get. But I'm telling you now, from experience, that $350 is as hard as for somebody else to get $3,500 or $3 million, right? They have no Scooby. So I'm that bridge in between that wants to be like, well, look, how do you get to the point where you can maybe have an education for 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 euros, right? How do you even get to the point where you can circulate that money to circulate more money? Yeah, that's
absolutely
right. Yeah, and maybe where you are, you're that bridge. You know, the next bridge.
I've got 100% with you. I've something that's been coming up for me at the moment is that there's kind of different stages, different steps. I don't know what, maybe steps is a way to look at it. Some people, most people.
Yes, we're talking 80%.
I'm talking like 80%, maybe even more, are at the step where they're not even ready to look at money.
Right. So let's do this. I like it when you break this down like this. So let's
literally not even ready to look at it.
Yeah, and their food to their food to mouth, their day to day, they can't even. They got no time.
Or they're wealthy.
Yeah,
but yeah, for sure, there's a lot of survival part that's in there. But even wealthy people, some are not even prepared to look at money. You know, and that maybe
interesting. Break that down a bit more. What do you mean? So somebody who's making just a lot of money naturally,
or someone that inherited money and then has, through that, perhaps even a distorted relationship to money. Did I deserve it?
Yes.
Am I worth it?
Yes.
I've got this money. Maybe it comes in as a monthly allowance. Maybe it's in a bank account somewhere, but I don't touch it. Yeah. Or, you know, it comes from my father and I've got a bad relationship with my father, so I don't want to associate myself with that money.
I know a couple of things like this.
There's lots of examples you can look at there. So I just want to say that it doesn't mean that only people that are in a survival relationship with money are at that place. You can be anywhere with regards to how much money you may have.
Thank you so much for that distinction, because there are so-called rich beings who are living a very lack mentality.
Absolutely. Right, I mean, that's a huge topic we can do a whole podcast just on that. Like,
I've
been there, right. So I can also talk to that.
Good.
But anyway, First step, right? Most people are not even ready to look at money. Second step, people who are ready to look at money. And that's it. So free resources would be great for people that are at that step, because they're interested, they're curious to look into money.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not at the step after that, which is people that are ready to work on money with money.
Mm.
And that's where powerful things happen. And that's where my focus is, actually. So I'm looking to attract in beings that are at that step, that are ready to work on money with money. So the money ceremony, for example, money medicine. It's like you bring money to the space and then we work on it. We flow with it.
Right.
You can get into a somatic relationship with money when you're ready to work on it with it. It's very difficult to get in my experience, I find it's difficult to get into the somatics of money where things can really shift until you're at the point where you're ready to work on it with it. It's like, I'm going to vibrate the energy of money by actually bringing it in, you know? And then that's a process. It's a process to get to that point. Many people are not ready to do that. And many people want free offerings where they just look at things, but they're not actually ready to like work on it, you know? And I think that, okay, so there's another one also. The step after working on money with money is like being money, the field of money, a transpersonal relationship with money. How can we as the entire soul space, this soul field, together as a field work on money? How can we make that entire field more attractive? How can we pull in energy from elsewhere and distribute it amongst this field, increasing the entire velocity of that field as one field within other bigger fields and systems?
Community within a community, ecosystem.
And the base part that you were talking about with the triangle example, it's like how can we make shifts there so that eventually maybe that field becomes the biggest? That's a transpersonal relationship to money, which is very far from people that are not even ready to look at it.
Yes, that's an expansion of actually that's going into the, tell me if I'm right in interpreting this, but that's going into the field where there literally is, we're not holding on to it and trying to control it, but we're actually putting it, there's enough for everyone because we keep putting it in to circulate because we know that circulation is supporting everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah, does it make sense?
Yeah, it's moving, energy is being moved wherever it's needed in every moment.
Right.
And it's not about a personality or anything. It could be 100% of everything goes to one thing because that's where it's needed in that moment. And the next day, perhaps the energy is needed somewhere else and it's moved there.
So there's like a detachment, because like you said, it's transpersonal. So there's a detachment from the personal, I own this is mine, and so on.
Yeah. And that's a group field. That's not an individual field. It's a group field.
And that arises how?
That
I asked the how, just the what and the why. Don't ask how. Sorry, don't even answer that. No need to know the how.
Yeah.
But the what and the why is. So I want to tap in a little bit more to your personal experience. Like, yeah, why are you doing it? Like, because you said a moment ago, if we even go there, but you said, you've had money. So you have money, yeah? You've had money? You've always had money from a young age? Or you never had money and then you started to make money? Like, now why? You've been in the business field. You were helping out in the business field. You made a lot of money, right? I get a sense you made a lot of money because you said you had a lot of money and you were in the lack, right? So just give us a little bit of that. Give us a little bit of what's driving this desire to really, help beings have a understanding, education, and a better relationship with money.
I come from a poor country, or relatively poor country. I come from South Africa, and South Africa has the biggest disparity between wealthy and poor people in the whole world.
Right.
And in that country, I came from a middle upper class, I guess you would say upper class type of a family, but we didn't have a lot of money. We had food and we had shelter and we had a good life and good education and things like that. But money was a concern at certain points. There were arguments in the family around money. There was scarcity around money. It's not as if we were in a very abundant place. And especially on a global basis, compared to someone with a lot less money living in Europe, we were lower down on the middle income kind of scale, we would be even lower. So on a global basis, not wealthy. Travel was expensive. First time I ever left my country I was 18. Travel wasn't really, international travel wasn't really available to me until then. I had to work until I was 30 years old before I could afford to leave the country. And I consider myself a self-made. My money was self-made. I didn't inherit money. I didn't come from a lot of money. I didn't make money as a result of having money. I made it myself. And
through work, jobs.
Through work, and then ultimately through becoming an entrepreneur.
What age did you become an entrepreneur?
30.
30.
Yeah. I moved to Europe to co-found my first company when I was 30 years old. And very quickly after that, huge amounts of money flowed in to that company. And I went, it was so much that I completely lost the link between the worth or the value of money. I was also moving from a country with a currency into an entirely new economic system. So I didn't even really have a value or sense for like, what is a euro worth, you know? Because I never really worked that much in that sense. I moved to Europe. I didn't really know. Like that's where I was at that point. I had the worst relationship to money by far when I had the most of it.
So from 30 years old to what age you made that money? That was in serving businesses, working in the business realm.
Yeah, my own business.
Yeah.
Own businesses. And yeah, from 30 to 33, 34, something like that.
And what numbers are we talking? Like you went from zero to millions, or billions? What?
No, zero to millions.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, zero to millions, and then
that changed everything.
That changed. No, that didn't change everything. What that changed was, I feel I've experienced the capacity of a large amount of money flowing through my system.
Yeah.
On a relative basis, I haven't experienced billions flowing through my system, but
your container opened.
It opened up. My container opened up.
Receiving millions flowing around.
Yeah, so like my concept of money completely changed as a result of that, right? It's like there's this abundance and actually I think the thing that changed the most for me was I can think really big. I'm not limited by thinking of small ideas because, I can only do this certain thing because there's money. I can't do that project because it costs X amount. And I'm not limited by that.
So money helped that.
Money helped that
mind shift.
Money helped shift my mindset out of a limiting space into much, I wouldn't say limitless, but...
Yeah, money never did that, but you did it, and having money contributed to that.
The experience of money flowing through my system changed that.
Exactly.
That's what changed it. And I mean, actually, the money doesn't have to flow through my system for that to change.
Right. That's what
I'm coming in now. It's like, how can I bring that into a place of service of others without them necessarily having to have millions flowing through their system? And by the way, the millions came in and out of my system.
Yeah.
I lost millions.
Yes.
I've been through that experience. I spent in the business insane amounts of money.
Yeah.
On salaries and all sorts of ridiculous things because there was just this velocity of money flowing in and out with ease.
Right.
I mean, also not in a good way, but I think at my peak in the first company, we were spending 200,000 euros a month on salaries. It's a big number.
Yeah.
And the money disappeared quite quickly when that's how much you're spending every month.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel painful to spend that, to be flowing that amount of money. It was an investment.
Right.
We were investing that money into people, into our business, into building things. So it felt good. I didn't have a sense of this big attachment to it. So there's something in there that shifted in my system around that point in time. But what happened was I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. And I didn't have purpose. And that's the thing.
And then the money it all went, but that business crumbled, or you chose to end that business because you didn't have a drive, a meaning, a purpose.
That business continued for many years. I also had another business after that. And about a year ago now, around about a year ago, but a bit longer, so I've been journeying a lot in my own journey of my own spiritual awakening, essentially, right? And at a certain point of that journey, alignment, I was focusing a lot on alignment to purpose in every element of my life. And at some point, it was one of the last points, work, and alignment to purpose in work came up. And when that came up for me, I was looking at the businesses that I had at that point, and I realized they just really weren't in alignment with my purpose in life anymore. And so I stepped away from them. I let go of the teams, fired all the teams, unfortunately. We returned the assets to investors because we had investors in those companies. So
why unfortunately?
Well, I mean, unfortunate to
for them, because they all of a sudden you pulled out.
Yeah.
But fortunately for you, because you followed your mission.
I mean, it just, okay, what I mean by unfortunately is that it was a difficult decision to make.
Right.
To be like, I'm stepping away from these companies, and then the energy of it just dissipates, you know?
And what, you had conflict inside of you, like to make that choice?
I didn't have conflict inside of me. I had clarity, but it wasn't an easy choice. You know?
Yeah.
It was the right choice.
Yeah.
But it was a very difficult one to make. I mean, my cost of aligning my entire life to purpose and service was letting go of a lot.
Yeah, but this is juicy.
Yeah.
This is lovely. And I think, tell us please in the comments, but like, can you see that? Because that, like, a lot had to go. Carry on.
Absolutely.
And I can even feel your energy now, as you said.
Grounded.
Yeah, no, grounded, but also like that was
it's meaningful.
That was a big step to actually to move into something that had more meaning and to let go of something that for many might have held them.
Exactly. And so this is actually a concept that I have, is like having money without purpose is not wealth. Wealth is money and alignment with purpose. No matter how much it is. Doesn't matter how much. But wealth is like, comes from the soil, comes from the soul.
Yeah.
That's where wealth comes from. And I feel I have this transmission around wealth, not relating to amounts of money, but the alignment of purpose and money. And when I see beings in the purpose field, in the soul field, that don't have the money part, that's why I feel this drive to come in and bring the money part to people's relationship when they're in alignment with purpose, because purpose without money is also not wealth. In the same way, money without purpose is not wealth. It's two ends of the same, it's a pendulum. Two ends of the same thing. And I'm trying to bring in the good parts of both. In the tech space, in a lot of the business space, what tends to happen is that people have a better like relationship to money in the sense of how easily it flows in and out of their system. Not necessarily with regards to other things, but just money flows more in that system. But purpose and the relationship to purpose tends to be lower down. And it's actually the opposite in the soul space. In the soul space, people's alignment to purpose is super high, but the relationship to money, very low.
Yeah, interesting. It's so interesting. There's a few distinctions for me there because, like, for me, purpose, like, I was on this path of, like, purpose for a long time, and I kind of let it go. I just keep checking this to make sure we're rolling. And then somebody gave me a reframe to purpose, which was, your very existence is purpose. Mm-hmm. There is no purpose that you have to strive for to become, because you are purpose, right? So there was this sense of like, you are purpose, which shifted everything for me. But then I used the word meaning, which I think you're kind of using in the same context as purpose, but I'm just playing with words. But words, they have power for me. So this idea of like, you are purpose. And then for me, what happened, there was a guy that I read a book about success and some books on money and so on. And there was this idea that like, wealth for me is measured by who you are when all of your money's gone. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the true wealth. It's because money doesn't determine your wealth. It's actually value, you are the value, right? Yeah. So just playing with these, no? And what it feels like, what you're pointing to is that you're pointing to that there's certain beings that have found their meaning. They're driven by something and so on. But there's also a distortion sometimes around value, no? Yeah. Because they want to make more money, but they don't know how. Right, I've been in that. No, you can follow these like models. You can look at whatever, sell your courses. You can get your marketing, and it comes in and it feels icky. It feels like now here I am having to like sell myself. But we're all selling ourselves anyway on some level. So I don't know if I'm distorting that, but I'm just playing with these words. So what you're saying is
I have some pieces on that.
You kind of found through whatever experience, this spiritual inquiry, let's call it, a deeper meaning that made you let go of those things that were not necessarily as great a value and to start something fresh?
Yeah.
And that happened only a year ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so you took some money, you were able to have some money from that experience to now invest into this new drive, this new mission, yeah? Good. And now you're aligned fully, or you feel more aligned than ever, to meaning, which is to support those beings.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. And yeah, it's also good. I'm glad you brought up the word purpose and because there's a lot of context to that.
Yeah.
That's also one other pillar that I'm actually supporting on too. The success and money part is one of them. Purpose is another one. And purpose for me is not this thing to be achieved within a lifetime. You know, we're all like, I'm born with this one purpose and I need to find it and achieve it, otherwise I've failed at life. Like, I don't relate to it in that way at all. And I feel in the distinction that you were bringing up, you're like, yeah, that's not purpose, and it's not that for me either. Purpose for me, and maybe you could call it meaning, I also get that. It's a direction. It's a choice that I'm making on the direction that I choose to express my energy through, that energizes me, that makes me feel good, that makes me feel nourished. And that's what purpose is for me, and that expresses in and through me as service to others.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where the deeper meaning part comes in. So yes, totally with you there.
Yeah, and that's your purpose.
That's my purpose. Exactly. Yeah, and everyone has their own.
Yeah.
And the part about wealth that you were talking about, for me, when I say purpose and money aligned as wealth, it's like that. Like money, money made, so income, as well as expenses, in alignment with a direction that nourishes me in my life.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's like
that's
a coherence of all of those. I'm
Yeah.
not feeling like I'm working in a job that I hate to turn money, and I want to be a musician or whatever it might
Exactly.
be. You're like, you want to bring the nucleus of all of those together
Yeah.
so that people feel nourished, nurtured, empowered
Yeah.
in what they really want to express.
And exactly, and hopefully what they want to express is
In service.
In service, right?
Yeah.
And if it is in service, then great, amazing, because now energy and money is flowing in a way that's expanding the entirety of humanity.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to support and grow.
Take a deep breath in there.
Yeah. And part of that is helping people that are in service make more money.
Yeah,
Because
there's a few things popping up. I just want to pause there for a moment. Yeah, I don't know. We're in the void right now, right? And there's like, for me, I needed to pause because this money conversation can get so powerful and head-based and clarity, with what we've been on and what the viewers are watching and listening to. But there's something popping for me around just you and I right now sat here as individual expressions of the divine. And I guess what was coming through was like, if you died tomorrow, life's going to continue. If I died tomorrow and I'm no longer in this body, life's going to continue. And of course, you and I have this, we're pioneering minds. We see the potential, the human potential movement. We see the evolution of humanity. We see what's possible. We see how we can pull ourselves out the density of these shadow times and create something more beautiful, more vibrant, more inclusive. We can end certain distortions and violence and shadow aspects of our being. That's the work that you and I do, right? And so I just want to, I guess we're kind of coming to a close soon. We could talk about many different pull-offs here, but I kind of knowing that we want to bring this to a maybe call it part one, because I think there's many parts to this. But I want you to just tune in, and because you really wanted to come together in this podcast, and I want you to tune in and just really see what's relevant to share in this closing segment, and what really wants to come through with from that really in the body dropped in part of Craig, and what do we want to offer to those listening, and for those listening right now, just inviting you, if you're with us this far, to also take a breath, take a pause, You know, we've thrown a lot there. There's a lot of different concepts, ideas, theories popping up. But like, you know, what feels true to you? You know, what really feels true to you in today's dialogue? You know, I listen to the Gene Keys, and one of my Gene Keys is that talks about me knowing that there's a potential of civilization connecting without even the need of money. That there's a way that we can share our gifts, resources, and collaborate and come together and create civilization without even the need of a transactional based currency, right? That's a whole nother level. So like, where are you in this journey with money? And I hope today you've been able to take something like what Craig's bringing around education of money and relationships of money, and being in that maybe smaller percentage of who want to talk about money and really look at themselves and ask for help and ask for support, and maybe come to Craig and ask questions, and or somebody else that you know in this field.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, so I let you kind of finish off. Does that feel good for you?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Not good. Good's not a feeling, but it feels grounded. I can feel you landing as well.
Yeah, the question of what do I want to offer to the space in closing. Your money, it sits in the realm of matter, in the density of matter. It's energy. Everything is energy. But money is stored energy, and working on one's own relationship to it is a difficult, challenging thing to do, because it's part of a collective. It's group work. Money is group work. It's too much for an individual to work on alone, because it's a collective energy inherently. It's part of all of our lives every day, all the time. And there's so much context and history and generational elements and cultural elements and societal elements of money, the financial system and the economy, the system that you were born into, the country you were born into, your parents' relationship to money, your ancestors' relationship to money, your experiences in life. It's so complex that it really is a group field to work on. And what I want to offer is that if you are struggling with money, or you're wanting to work on your relationship to money, you're not alone. You're not alone. Let's do this together in groups. And there are spaces available for people that are ready to look at money. And there are spaces that are available for people that are ready to work on money, with money. And there are spaces available for people that are thinking about the entire field and want to look and explore into the transpersonal relationship to money. They're all available. There's lots of different ways to connect with this. And I would say most of them are group fields. So if that's something that's alive as a listener, when you're listening right now, and you're wanting to work in any way on your relationship to money, then reach out, connect to community, find ways to resource within yourself also if you're struggling and feeling stuck around money, you know, in the same way we treat emotions. All the tools that we use for emotions, those exact same tools can also be used for money. If you're feeling stuck around money, go spend time in nature, move your body, express your emotions, because it's energy in the same way that emotions are. Things like frameworks like the wheel of consent can be applied to money. Emotional release tools can be applied to money. So we have tools that are available, but we don't look at them much because it's a taboo. So starting to talk about it is important. Starting to become more open around money is important. Starting to look at it, starting to work on it. These things are like fundamentally crucial. They're crucial to our experience in this lifetime.
Yeah, I love that.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Can I jump in there? Thank you. Thank you for dropping in, and thank you for expressing that. Because as you were talking, I'm taking away that when we talk about the rise of a new human being, and we talk about the embodied sovereign being, we talk about the integrated being, then we have to be integrated in all these areas that Craig and I have touched on today. You know, the the sexuality, all the taboos actually, you know, sexuality, the power, the money, you know, the truth, speaking our truth, you know, communication. And I love how you just weaved it in instead of our emotional release tools and actually knowing that we're not separate from it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it's like often we're like, you know, we try to put it over in the corner, no money, whatever, I deal with it later. But actually we're not, you said it, it's every day. So we're thinking about it, we're in it, we're hustling to get money, we're doing something for money. So actually it's very important to bring focus to that. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for stepping into that as a pillar of opportunity for that to come through, you know. Yeah. And I'm getting a vision now of like even my interest. My brother's really quite into the digital cryptocurrencies and so on, and he's been sharing stuff with me. And at times I also kind of get a sense I don't have time for it. But you also reminded me today that we are moving into a new phase of money and how we change money through Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, and you know, and to have an understanding of that, you know, how does a wallet work? How does decentralized finance work? How can I circulate my value in different ways? Is vitally important, as you said, or the word you used, crucial. So thank you so much. So underneath here, there will be links where you can go and explore Evolution of Us, right? And is there a way that people just reach out to you and ask questions? Does it work like that?
Yeah, definitely. Probably easiest way to get hold of us is just Instagram. So you can just look at our Evolution of Us, or it's _Evolution of Us_ on Instagram, and just send a message on there. That's I'll
put the link as well underneath in the footnotes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
And by the way, I feel like we should do another episode on cryptocurrencies.
Yes, and also thank you today for you know, just dancing with this, because like you said, there's shadows here. I think something for you would be lovely. I'd love to also see a piece written or a piece specifically on the many shadows that can play out. Yeah. The many, because I also don't think that's something that, you know, many are talking about, right?
I do have some stuff on that.
Yeah, because sometimes there's a real fear around talking about shadows, but you and I both know that for us, going into the shadows is really where the richness is, right? Whether it's around sexuality, money, or truth, all of it. The shadows are not scary when we're not running from them. Yeah, you know. We won't go into this now, but when we do the masculine feminine, you hear that talk a lot, the polarities, but we do the dark and the light of the masculine feminines. And so often it's all this thing about like, I want to be in the light, but there's shadows of the light and there's shadows of the dark. The dark and the light are needed, and that's the same when it comes to money. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for tuning in with us and staying with us and going on this journey of inquiry. Please, if it's inspired you, share it on, forward it to a friend. If there's been little elements that you like, if you have any questions, fire them to me or Craig. Write to us in the comments, whatever, you know, just reach out and start the conversation. And I just, in and of itself, that if you've listened this far, then you've definitely taken what you need. So, yeah, look forward to see how this impacts you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, brother.
Likewise.
Let's have a hug.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Simon Transparently. This podcast is a call to action, a call into sovereignty, a call to speak our truth and love ourselves fiercely, and for us all to rise up together as love. If you are resonating with my offerings, you can support me by becoming a patron, for which I would be deeply grateful. And you can access more of my content at simontransparently.com.
This is our time to rise.